On behalf of the Bridgewater Town Council, I'm Kevin Perry, President of the Council, and I'm pleased to submit the following report to the citizens of the town of Bridgewater for 2024. The town of Bridgewater saw many changes in 2024, starting with the annual town election in April, where we saw the welcoming of 3 new town councilors, Adeline Ellenberg and Mary McGrath as new councilors at large, and Sonia Striggles as a new District 1 councilor. In welcoming the new, we had to say goodbye to former councilors Sean George, Eric Moore, and Dennis Gallagher, and we thank them for their years of service to the town council, as well as congratulate Mr. Gallagher in his election bid to be our state representative. Additionally, I want to thank the council in electing me and supporting me as president this past year, and thank Councilor Paul Murphy for being my vice president. Unfortunately, we also lost at-large Councilor Susie Robinson, who stepped down in November, and at-large town councilor Brad McKinnon in February of this year. The council was able to appoint Johnny Loretti as Ms. Robinson's replacement, and we have welcomed his energy and input during his short time on the council to date. Due to the proximity of Mr. McKinnon's departure to the town election in April, the council did not attempt to appoint someone new, instead leaving his seat to be filled by the voters. We also saw an unexpected change at the top in August, as Town Manager Michael Dutton announced his resignation to take a position as manager of Barnstable County. We thank Mr. Dutton for his 12 years of service to Bridgewater and the results of his leadership during those years, as well as wishing him much success in his new position. His departure prompted the council to decide on a process for his replacement, which led to the formation of a town manager ad hoc search committee, composed of 4 town councilors and the chair of the BR School Committee, all of whom I thank for their service in this additional work. Led by Council Vice President Paul Murphy, this ad hoc committee was tasked with identifying a search firm, in this case Community Paradigm was chosen, to gather qualified candidates for this position. The ad hoc committee worked together with Bernie Lynch from the firm in screening the 26 candidates received in the search, and narrowed the field down to those we wanted to interview in person, which resulted in 7 candidates. Those 7 were reduced to 4 finalists to be interviewed by the entire council and witnessed by the public. Unfortunately, 2 of the finalists dropped out prior to the interviews, but in my and the ad hoc committee's view, the remaining 2 were the top 2 candidates overall from this process. In an effort to involve the public in this process and maintain as much transparency as possible, surveys were used to gather public opinion regarding the characteristics the town wanted in a new town manager, as well as an in-person public meeting at the Senior Center for the same, and finally a meet and greet with the finalists for the public to ask direct questions to the candidates just prior to their public interview. In all, I felt the process went as open and transparent as it could possibly go, and I am happy to announce that the council at our last meeting has chosen Justin Casanova-Davies as the new town manager, and we hope to have him in place by June 1st at the latest. In the interim, the town council was fortunate to have Blythe Robinson already acting assistant town manager under Mr. Dutton, whom we negotiated with and appointed her to become our interim town manager in September, in accordance with Section 4-6 of the Bridgewater Home Rule Charter. Ms. Robinson's extensive experience with over 30 years of municipal government ensured the leadership that Bridgewater needed, allowing the town to stay on track while we search for a permanent town manager. I want to personally thank Ms. Robinson for the exemplary work she has done while being our interim town manager, especially her work in crafting our FY26 budget with our financial team, which she will unveil to the council at our first meeting in April. Speaking of finances, what is the current financial state of the town? Going back to our FY24 budget and a financial audit by Roselli, Clark & Associates, of that fiscal year, the town of Bridgewater did not have any significant deficiencies or material weakness to that budget, as in FY23. We have maintained a beneficial bond rating of AA3 and have a stabilization fund of $7.5 million, which helps us maintain that bond rating. Based on the council's yearly budget resolutions and the guidance of the Finance Committee, along with the efficiency and dedication of the town's financial staff, has ensured the town's ability to have successful audits, maintain its bond rating, and allow the town low borrowing costs for its projects. As for FY25, the budget was set by the very same parameters and practices and is approximately $75 million. As of halfway through this fiscal year, the town had received about 2/3 of its revenue and slightly ahead of the pace expected, while expenses did not exceed revenue at this time. but the end of the fiscal year is always tight. Goals are to target free cash at 2% of the operating budget and maintain a balance and stabilization fund equal to 10 to 12% of the operating budget, which is where we're at right now. What is the outlook for FY26? Like all years, the town's operating budget relies heavily on property taxes, which makes up 65 to 70% of the total revenues received. The rest based on state aid, local receipts, and other available funds. As allowed by Proposition 2.5, an annual increase of 2.5% in real property taxes translate to approximately $1.5 million, with new growth adding $650,000 to $700,000. And this number has been trending downward in the past few years since 2022, when that number was about $1.6 million. But this is due to a slowdown in commercial and residential construction, signaling an economic slowdown. What other challenges face the town that are mostly out of our control? Projected declines in local receipts, reductions in state aid that reflect reductions in federal aid, inflationary pressures near 40-year highs leading to wage inflation, higher interest rates, construction inflation, energy inflation, and the overall increased cost of goods and services spurred by increase in international tariffs for those goods. Additionally, we face significant budgetary concerns for the BR regional school system, who in FY26 alone are in need of an additional $10 million for increased transportation costs, out-of-district tuition and special education costs, utilities, health insurance costs, and contractual increases. With almost 5,700 students in the BR system, student-teacher ratios and class sizes are at all-time highs. Other school systems of similar size in Massachusetts have $120 to $130 million budgets, but those towns and cities have between $200 and $300 million operating budgets. Bridgewater-Raynham combined have about $120 to $125 million in budget money, leading to a $90 to $95 million school budget in recent years, and resulting low average per pupil spending. To get the appropriate funding levels the school needs to meet these issues, they are requesting over 30% increases to both Bridgewater and Raynham, while the state has only issued an 8.5% increase, about $2.7 million, to their funding under Chapter 70, and not fully covering transportation costs under Chapter 71 that regional school systems are supposed to receive. To get to level funding from FY25, they are requesting 15 to 16% increases from both towns, but this could still lead to a loss of staffing across all departments, not filling retired staff, loss of extracurriculars, and increased athletic fees, as well as further increased class sizes. As you can tell from the numbers I've just mentioned, the math does not equate. The town budget that from year to year increases only 2.5% to 3% cannot handle a 15 to 30% increase in a school budget that makes up over 50% of the town's operational budget. How does that affect other town services? Police, fire, BPW, the senior center, the library, and general government. It could be drastic and devastating. We cannot in good conscience take from those services and transfer it to the schools. Early estimates of FY26 budget show that the town may be cutting from many departments and general government to make the numbers work. This is a budget that will not have great news across the board, unfortunately. So what are some possible solutions? Getting more money from the state? This might prove difficult. As mentioned before, cuts from the federal level might affect state aid to the town, affecting not only what has been promised to us, but definitely limiting additional funding, in addition to the various federal grants the town applies for and receives for various projects and services. What about increasing our commercial tax base? This is certainly a strategy for long-term growth of the town and offsetting the tax burden of the residents, but not a complete answer for FY26. Yes, we do have some commercial projects in the pipeline, such as the Broad Street project of the Old Friendlies and the Perkins redevelopment project, both adding not only to the property tax base, but in permit and tie-in fees, excise taxes, and local meals taxes. But that will take time to put in place. What about a split tax rate for commercial businesses? It's something to look into, but with businesses only making up 12 to 15% of the tax base in Bridgewater, increasing the business tax rate may limit their economic growth, their ability to expand as a business and create local jobs by making it more expensive to open their doors and operate, leading to higher prices to consumers and deterring new businesses to come to Bridgewater. And about an operational override. This is the big question that everyone is talking about. The town currently has a tax rate of $11.83 per thousand, ranking as 16th out of 26 towns in Plymouth County, therefore on the lower side. The town has not voted for an operational override since 2010, where unfortunately during that time we were also in a financial crisis with our schools. $2 million was moved from our general fund to the schools via town meeting vote, resulting in cuts to public safety, the closing of the senior center, and the decertification of our public library, leading the town to pass a $2.8 million override after 3 prior override votes failed. Do we want to go down this road again? We are facing a similar situation in FY26. Unfortunately, the cost of everything is escalating, and as I mentioned before, 2.5% to 3% increases in yearly budgets are not keeping up with demand. However, despite the desperate needs of the schools, we cannot rush into an override in haste. The override needs to address not only the needs of the schools, but for our infrastructure needs, the needs of our police and fire departments as well. This must address the services that affect most all residents of Bridgewater, so the town residents can get behind it. We also need the time to determine the exact amount we need in a potential ask of an override. This amount needs to be thoroughly vetted, so hopefully we don't have to go down this road again for another 15 years. We need a responsible number so as not to overwhelm our seniors and retired residents of our town and those on a fixed income who are trying to hold on to their homes. We know this is a big ask from those residents, but we must all come together and realize that it falls on all of us to support the needs of this town. If not, we will all suffer as we did back in 2007, 08, and 09. The timing is also difficult as we are bringing in a new town manager in late May, early June. Getting a responsible, educated, and well-researched override on the ballot by the end of June, never mind April, may prove to be too difficult as he settles into his new role with our town. A realistic time frame may be in October or November of 2025, allowing the new town manager and the town council to work together to determine the amount of override needed, and if passed, could fund the second half of fiscal year 26. This again needs to be discussed and determined, but nothing is off the table. We need discussions with Raynham leadership to see where they are at with their budget and possible override talks in their town. Moving to strengths of the town and what has been accomplished over the past year. As a town council, we passed a number of ordinances that should be of benefit to the town for the coming years, starting with the passage of the form-based code in April of 2024, enhancing the town's vision to reality plan brought forth by Mr. Ruley in the Community and Economic Development Office. The form-based code will allow developers to follow a checklist of requirements the town is looking for in commercial development, allowing a more expedited approval process for commercial development in the Central Business District. In line with development and preservation in town, legislatively, the town council authorized the purchase of a 2-lot property on Broad Street to be used for conservation and passive recreation purposes in conjunction with the Stiles and Hyde Park renovations, to preserve green space and provide additional recreation areas in town. We approved loan authorizations to fund the design and replacement of water wells 5R and 9R that reached their end-of-life limit and required an upgrade to ensure continued reliable water for the community. And the council also approved an electric irrigation plan, which enables the town to work with a consultant to go out and bid for electric supply, which could potentially reduce energy costs for residents and businesses while ensuring stable, reliable, and affordable electric service. Additional ordinances, orders, and resolutions approved by the council this year include application of the Mullen Rule relative to adjudicatory hearings, the zoning amendments relative to senior village housing, the military service on leave ordinance compensating town employees who are also active military and reservists up to 40 paid days per year while they are away in service or training. The Veterans Volunteer Services Work-Off Program, enabling veterans to work as volunteers to earn up to $1,500 toward reduction of their property taxes. The truck exclusion ordinance for High and Hayward Streets, and an amendment to the shade trees ordinance to allow appointed tree warden instead of elected. An order designated 46 and 48 Summer Street as a park to be developed. Renaming the Bridgewater Middle School for longtime educator and former superintendent Edward O'Donohue. And FY26 budget resolution. Special proclamations were also made by the council, including recognizing the success of our Bridgewater Little League 12-year-old American All-Stars team in September, after being the first Bridgewater Little League team to win the Massachusetts State Championship and advance the New England regionals, as well as the 125th anniversary of the Veterans of Foreign Wars in the United States and the City of Peace proclamations that same meeting. In December, we also recognized the 2024 Fall Game Day cheer team from BR after winning the 2024 state title. And at just our last meeting, we proclaimed May 2025 as Bridgewater's Purple Heart Month in honor of our town's veterans who received the Purple Heart Medal as a result of being wounded in combat during their military service. So in summary, the Town Council to date, since last April, has passed 11 ordinances, 3 relative to zoning, 46 orders, 30 appointments and reappointments, and I'd like to thank those who stepped up to volunteer for those committees and commissions, and we do need more, and 5 resolutions. However, the resolution that brought the most attention to Bridgewater was one that did not pass and was tabled. I'm referring to the resolution affirming Bridgewater as a welcoming community for all. We had 3 very well-intentioned councilors bring forth this resolution at the request of a citizen to present this as an extension and reaffirmation of the prior resolution that hangs in the lobby of our town offices, stating that Bridgewater is a community of civility and respect. Unfortunately, someone from outside of town got a hold of this unedited resolution, posted it on X, and said that Bridgewater was trying to become a sanctuary city, and all hell broke loose. People also referred to this as a DEI resolution, which would be in conflict with national stances on DEI and the possible loss of federal funding, which is not accurate. This in turn led to an online petition against affirming Bridgewater as a welcoming community for all. Sounds oxymoronic. Why wouldn't anyone want to belong to a welcoming community? Is this a terrible stance to take? We host the most diverse university in the Massachusetts State University system. Our schools are almost 30% non-white. We live in a very diverse community. Was this a DEI resolution? No, as DEI resolutions are usually policies adopted to promote an inclusive and an equitable environment within an organization or institution. We are a community. This was a community resolution about people. The intention of the resolution was to state that this community values and respects all individuals, period. Did some of the language need to be changed? Yes. Amendments were made initially and others were to follow. But the council decided to table this based on all of the public backlash misinterpreting the intention of the resolution, which is sad and unfortunate. Additionally, the horrible treatment of one of our councilors based on her co-sponsorship of the resolution caused her to receive numerous racial slurs and hateful comments directed at her via email and social media. This is unacceptable. Some public comments made stated that Bridgewater doesn't need this messaging. This doesn't happen in our town. This opens our town to legal problems. The council needs to focus on other town problems. While on top of the racist treatment of our counselor, we also had 2 incidences at the Williams Intermediate School in December and January, where anti-Semitic symbols and racially and culturally insensitive words were written in the snow and on bathroom walls, both considered unlinked separate acts, but those were 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. Not good. And just recently, a Bridgewater resident was arrested and charged with vandalism at Bridgewater State University for fixing neo-Nazi stickers on school property. Hate and racism is still present in our community. And if a resolution intended to affirm that Bridgewater stands united against discrimination, intolerance, and not for actions that seem to divide us is wrong, then what does that say about our town? It says that we are divided. However, we need to come together as a town more than ever, politics aside, and be a community. A town divided amongst itself cannot stand, and neither can a state or a nation. Outside of needing to come together as a community, what are the other areas that need attention in Bridgewater? Obviously, at the top of that list is our infrastructure, roads, water, and sewer. We have heard numerous presentations from our town departments and CED director regarding these issues, and rest assured they are being worked on. In regards to water, for FY25, our DPW is working on the design and construction of wells 5R and 9R, replacing the water mains at Flag Street and Cross Street, connecting Plymouth Street wells 10A and 10R to the High Street treatment plant, all at a cost of about $13 million, paid for by bonds and low-interest loans. all of which can help increase the supply and minimize the discolored water to residents. On the horizon in FY26 to FY30, a possible new well and treatment plant on Vernon Street could be had, additions to Carver's Pond and High Street treatment plants for PFAS removal, Sprague Hill tank replacement, and work to connect to outside water sources in either Taunton or Brockton, those at a cost of about $63 million, paid for by retained water earnings, grants, loans, and possible PFAS class action funds. In regards to wastewater, the town has been working on phase 1 of upgrades to the water treatment plant in regards to removing nitrates from the effluent at a cost of about $43 million through ARPA loans and principal forgiveness, as well as user charges, and will be completed by May 1st of 2025. Phase 2 upgrades deal with removing phosphorus from the effluent at a cost of $56.8 million. However, that is in the planning stage and does not need to be completed until June 1st of 2031. To be paid by user charges, grants, and loans. In regards to roads, areas under consideration in the spring and summer of FY25 include Flag Street from Bedford to Summer Street, Winter Street from Bedford to Conant Street, South Street from Central Square to Pleasant Street, and areas around the new bridge on High Street. Again, Chapter 90 money from the state is usually limited to about $1 million, enough for about 4 miles of top coat. But we can also apply for grants and look at debt exclusions to fund. Additional roads to be addressed from FY25 to 30 include Vernon Street, Deerfield Drive, Main Street, Cross Street, and Green Street, all at a combined cost of about $56.5 million, using the same funding sources. Additionally, through the CED office and meetings with the Downtown Revitalization Committee, the town has been consulting with traffic study groups and engineers looking to improve road design and pedestrian safety in and around Central Square. They unveiled designs in December and January that create two-way traffic on either side of the common, four-way stops at the south end of Central Square, and parallel parking in front of the businesses, with the goal of using shared parking in various areas around the common. The biggest suggestion of change would be a potential roundabout design where Main, Broad, and Summer Streets meet. Feeling this option allows for better traffic flow at that intersection and allows for safer pedestrian travel around the common. Other alternatives include a redesigned signalized intersection at the same intersection, or leaving the common as it is. Final reports and suggestions will be made by the firms between June and September of 2025. Many town projects are in various stages of development for the betterment of Bridgewater. The Stiles and Hyde Park is very close to being finished, with improved trails, wetland crossings built, and fishing platforms installed, as well as the High Street Bridge replacement and dam removal project, with small drainage issues still yet to be addressed. The new fire station continues to progress, overseen by Mr. Ruley, as the project continues to be slightly ahead of schedule and still on budget, with construction to be finished by the end of this year or early 2026. The library is undergoing a needs assessment for repairs, upgrades, and improvements to the building and the property. And with this improvement plan, use of capital funds and future grant funding will be used to make those repairs. The Old State Farm project is being led by Kitty Doherty and the NRTB, and they have worked on securing a trail easement from the Department of Corrections, as well as receiving grant funding to construct a 1.8-mile trail along the Taunton River with associated trailhead parking areas. Once the easement is executed by the state and recorded at the Registry of Deeds, work can commence on the parking lots and the trail. The Summer Street Park at the old mobile station is still awaiting final design and a renovation plan for the building, as funding is in place via a $500,000 park grant and the additional financial assistance from BSU to undergo the work. But no funds from the town's capital plan or CPC funds will be used. The town secured a P&S agreement and a conservation restriction to Hanson's Farm to maintain approximately 72 acres of farmland as open space at a cost of $3 million, based on a state MVP grant for $3 million for this purpose, as well as required CPA funds. The town is also looking to construct a pavilion at Town River Landing, starting with a generous donation of $20,000 from McDonald Industries for design. But additional funding is needed to construct, and BP students will be used in the construction process. As far as future goals for the town council and the incoming town manager, My hope is that we can literally hit the ground running. The election coming up on April 26th will be extremely important for the future of Bridgewater, as all open seats have contested races, which I don't believe has happened since we changed to the town manager, town council form of government. It is imperative that as many Bridgewater residents come to the polls or by mail-in ballot and cast your vote for who you feel are the best candidates to lead this town forward and work with Mr. Casanova-Davies, our new town manager. The council and town manager will have to work hard on finding solutions needed to solve the budget shortfalls we are looking at in FY26 relative to our schools and town services. Will we go forward and propose an override? Can we find alternative funding sources? Can we continue to work with our vision to reality plan to promote and support reasonable growth and development to our central business district and add to our tax base? These are all very important questions that need to be answered as the future of Bridgewater hangs in the balance. Thank you, and that concludes my State of the Town report at this time. Thank you very much. Getting a